Welcome to the BrushForger PrefabPainter video guide. The BrushForger PrefabPainter has been developed to let artists place prefabs easily and fast into a scene. With the PrefabPainter you can customize brushes with your own prefabs, you can set up scales and rotations, you can randomize, and you have easy shortcuts. Everything comes fully tooltipped and with undo functionality. And also, the PrefabPainter gives coders an extendable set of classes to create custom brush scripts. The PrefabPainter requires the BrushForger base and line brush asset. First import the base asset and then the BrushForger PrefabPainter asset. To start drawing, open the BrushForger palette by selecting it under the Unity top menu under Tools, BrushForger. Select a brush, select the Paint tool and start drawing. First, let's create a brush. Right-click into your project hierarchy anywhere and create a new prefab brush. This will create an asset that helps you saving your setup for your brush. Now find that brush in the BrushForger palette in the brush list and select it. Select the prefabs you want to draw and drag them into the brush objects. You can create multiple brushes with different objects and settings to reuse them. Let's select the Paint tool. By the way, you can always read tooltips if you want to know what each option or tool does. Use the mapping to determine how the object is spawned. A plane will construct a 2D plane in the parent object. The camera mapping will let you freely place an object in the scene in front of your camera. The raycast mapping will draw with a raycast that detects meshes. Let's select the plane mapping and set its axis to XY. Let's also create a parent for all objects. Drag them to the target field and draw. If we draw some prefabs, they all get drawn with a distance to each other. Increasing the brush size can help to create larger areas. When we paint, it will be counted as a stroke and we will not paint in areas where prefabs are below the minimum distance. Now let's make the prefabs look more natural with some randomization. By drawing with the draw chance, we can have more random gaps between each object, and by randomizing transform values they get more variation. When we draw, the preview will always tell us what we get. If you click one time, the preview will be drawn into the scene. What you see is what you get. Now for the other tools, the eraser tool erases, the flip tool flips, the rotation tool rotates, and the scale tool scales. In the BrushForger project you can find two examples of prefab brush variations, the sprite prefab brush and the double prefab brush. Let's recreate the double prefab brush. We start by extending the prefab brush class and define a BrushForger brush attribute, which determines the default name and if the default instance of this class will also show up in the brush list. We then copy the create new brush asset method so that the user can create a custom instance with a right click. If we stop here, we can already check the brush in the brush list and create our own instance with a right click. Now let's create a prefab brush variation. We could script our own brush, but thankfully we can just inherit the create brush object method and add our own code. This way we do the same things as the default prefab brush, but can add custom code. If you want to add custom components, change materials, meshes or do other things, you can do it right here. In our case we want to create two game objects. But since the preview function in the draw tool expects one game object, we put these two objects into a new parent. So we use the base method to create a new object twice and give them back with a new parent. And voila, here's the result. If you have any further questions about the PrefabPainter, leave a comment or write to the email address linked to the Unity CodeRedCat account. Have fun with the asset and happy crafting!